Everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going through the preview of this MLB slate tonight, and Bobby's not here, so what I'm going to do is take advantage of that in some way by at least by doing it the way kind of I go through the slate. I'm not going to go through game by game. I'm going to get to most every game, but I'm going to go through it kind of at a slate perspective using my tools, which is, just the way I play and the way I do it. And also I get to do this a little earlier than normal so they can go on and do other things. So this is an early look. There's going to be lineup change and things like that. But again, I think that number one, it'll give you a good idea of what the slate's going to do. And second of all, it's going to give you an idea of at least how I utilize the tools that I have to make my lineups. I still think that's more important than just giving you the picks and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So what we're looking at, this is the DK, just kind of lineup builder. And then what I'm going to keep referring to are my sheets, which are, available on the site for you guys. And I just want to just go over how I approach these things, and how I think you should be building good lineups. The other thing I'll refer to a little bit later is I'm going to actually build some lineups with SaberSim, which, I have no qualms with recommending. And I'll show you just how I do that. I don't know if I'm going to get to DraftKings and FanDuel, but we're going to just get started. So what I like to do is I like to rate all these guys by my value score. Now, I wanted to just also just give a little bit of a disclaimer here. I hope you guys realize that, projections in baseball are the most fragile. Well, maybe not the most, but pretty close. So, don't just, take these projections or any projections, just throw them into an optimizer and expect those lineups to do well for you. There's quite a bit of variance with respect to baseball, but you do have to start somewhere with some type of baseline. And for what it's worth, this is my way I do things. I start with the projections, and then what I do is I interlay ownership on top of it, and then build lineups to correlate well and ownership fade. So you're never going to get the top-rated plays in lineups of mine, but you have to start with the top-rated plays, right? But this is just kind of the way I look at it. So usually at the top of the value list, you're going to get the pitchers anyway. But if you want, you could sort by pitchers. So it happens that Chas McCormick is such a great value that he actually even dips into the pitcher pool, which is actually quite rare. So when I rank these guys by my value score, these are not really high, okay? Like sometimes when you get like these nut pitchers like Bieber and Cole and wherever against an easy team, you're going to get a value score of like 60 or like 50 or something like that. And even sometimes you get a really, really good cheapo who is in a good spot. You might get them in like 50, 33 and 35. And this is really not that great. And more to the point, all these guys are really close, So when I have a situation like this where no one's really great and everybody's really close, I am always going to just default to the ownership. And it depends on, how much I want to spend is going to depend on how the hitting shapes up as well. So like, for example, like even though Darvish rates the beats slightly better than all these guys, it's not by much. And a 39% ownership is just not going to happen. I'm just not going to play it. I mean, I'd much rather play, for example, Kyle Gibson at 15% or Odorizzi at 9% or Montas at 4%. Like all of these guys really are close enough to Darvish where I'm just not going to play it based on my numbers, and that's just the way it's going to be. With respect to who to play in here, again, I prefer like the lowest owned players, right? So Odorizzi, maybe Montas, whatever. But again, you don't need to play, for example, Gibson and Odorizzi if there's not a lot of good, big price hitting options. So we kind of have to put this on hold to then figure out what good hitting options there are to determine which way to go with the pitching. Like if you're going to have a really, if the hitting options aren't that great, I am going to probably pay up for, some of the lower owned high price guys like Montas, right? If the hitting is really, really good, then I'll probably want to pay down for Gibson and Odorizzi, things like that. Now, again, some of you sharper people might be thinking, well, why do you do it that way? Why don't you just say, well, I'm going to judge my hitting options off of who I want in pitching? Well, yeah, if there was a standout pitcher, I would go in reverse, right? If there was a guy who was 60, I would say, okay, it depends what hitting I'm going to use, depending on, you know what I mean? How I'm going to pivot off of hitting is going to depend on which pitching I use, etc. But here, because I think the pitching is overall so weak that I'm going to probably just pivot off of. I'm probably going to just gauge my pitchers based on how much I want to spend on hitting. So for now, we're just going to keep this in abeyance, which guys I'm playing between Gibson or Rizzi. That's one way to look at it. Or say Montas, Savali, those types of guys. So let's take a look at the hitting, okay? So the way I do it is, yeah, you could do it one of two ways. You could just do it by just ranking them by positions and just seeing what team kind of stands out. Like, see, like, here's a Houston guy, here's a Cincinnati guy, here's a Minnesota, and then a couple of more Houstons. So a bunch of Houstons. So it's not going to come as any surprise that Houston's probably going to be the highest rated stat, but may as well just take a look at the stack tool that kind of does this for you. And so how are we going to rank these? You can either rank them by raw or by modified in a situation like this. So if you rank them by modified, Houston rates out to be the top play by a lot. And they're highly owned as a result. If you rate them by raw points, Houston again rates to be the highest owned, the highest performer by a lot, and they're going to be the highest owned. So where are we? Well, if we want to play Houston, it's okay, because we've already decided that we're going to be playing kind of the cheaper pitchers if we play Houston. So I think that this discrepancy of 120 versus 106 or 49 versus 45 in raw, it's enough where I might be willing to eat the chalk in the hitting if I go ahead and ownership fade with the pitching. And I might choose to ownership fade with the one-offs as well. Let's look at some of these others, by the way, while we have this up. So next on the list is going to be Cincinnati if you rank them by modified, and if you rank them by raw, it's once again going to be Cincinnati. So Cincinnati and Houston look to be clearly the standout type stacks of the day. Okay. So again, because they're standouts for me here, you look, the ownership is pretty, it's pretty healthy also. So you're going to want to, definitely you're going to want to pivot to the lower owned pitchers anyway when you're playing these guys. Then we go down to a team like Milwaukee, who I don't like because, again, this is the way I'm looking at it. You don't get much of an ownership break, if at all, and it's significantly worse. So I don't like this one. I'd much prefer, if we're going to rank them by modified, for example, well, Minnesota is going to be better than Milwaukee. So Minnesota, I think, is kind of a next tier. And then, like, for example, I'd much rather play Baltimore than Milwaukee, okay? Because they rate to be very similar, and they have like half the ownership. So I already know that if you're going to play Baltimore, then you can go and play the higher priced pitchers, right? And we'll give you examples of that. And then for me, there's a big drop to these others. So I'm not going to probably play Arizona. Like when you have a big drop, like 3 points in this down at the bottom, that's pretty bad. But here now, like, I'm not playing any San Diego. I'm not playing any Chicago. I'm not playing any of these other teams down here. The ranking for based on modified is just too low. Even though, if you rank some of these by raw, you might get to some of them. Actually, not even. So those guys are just all going to be gone. So we could try to build these by hands, or we could have Saberson build them. We're going to probably do a little of both. But first, let me go back and let's see if there's any position players that we just kind of missed. You know what I mean? Who's going to stand out on teams that we didn't mention? Probably nobody. That's just the way it works. So like McCormick's on Houston, right? Kepler's on Minnesota. Brantley and Alvarez are on Houston. Altuve. Santander, Baltimore. So you're not going to really get to such great one-offs. The one-off from a team we haven't mentioned, I think I should probably mention, is Christian Walker, who is a first base, 3,900. So he might work. So let's just take a look and see. Let's hand build. So let's do 2 examples. Let's first cram in the Houstons, and then we'll build that way. So who did we say that we liked with the Houstons? McCormick, Brantley, Alvarez, Altuve, Straw, or you can even play Correa, right? Now you already see there's going to be a whole bunch of outfielders here. So let's just take McCormick, Brantley, and Alvarez. So let's put that in. So we'll go McCormick, Brantley, Alvarez, for example. And then we'll put in Altuve, right, as a second baseman. And then Correa, right, he was another one. So you can put Correa in right over there. So if you're going to play this 5-man stack, like I said, you just really don't even want to, you don't want to play the chalk. You just don't. And the good news is you're not going to be able to afford Darvish anyway in this build. But let's just take a look and see who you can afford. So here you could play, say, Gibson and Odorizzi if you want to do that. All right. You know, you're so chalky here that I don't even think you would want to play like Arias or even Happ. I really think you almost have to play Odorizzi, which is kind of cool because he does correlate, right, with Houston. So for me, it would be something like Gibson, Odorizzi. How does that look? Let's say you played Odorizzi, and then let's say you played Gibson. Oops. What would you have left? I mean, you'd have a fortune left. Okay, you'd have 5,100 left on, you know, for all 3 positions. And you know, I don't need to fill these in for you, but you could pay up for all kinds of great stuff. Okay. Also, to that point, I mean, if you have a situation like this, you know, you don't have to play Gibson and Odorizzi, right? You could probably play Montas if you want and maybe get away with it, right? So let's just say that instead of, well, let's get Gibson out of there because he's more highly owned. So instead of that, let's put in Montas. You still can play, you know, 3 really, really good, you know, good one-offs there. So that's what you're probably going to want to do. If you're going to play the Houston chalk, you're probably going to want to pay down for pitching. And you know, I would go either, you know, one of these lower owned guys, like either, like I said, Odorizzi or Gibson. Okay. Now again, these are ownerships like as of now. All right, I'll be hopefully posting up an update a little bit later. But I think that's the way I'd go about it. Now, just as an example, let me just see if it makes any difference whether you play Houston or Cincinnati with respect to what types of guys you get. Let's see. Cincinnati, Castellanos, Aquinos, Suarez, Stevenson. So let's see. Where are we? Cincinnati. Castellanos, Aquino, Suarez, Stevenson. See outfield Stevenson? I don't think so. First base. Whoa, you can get him at catcher? I mean, that's what you want to do, right? Who else was it? Aquino, Suarez, Stevenson. Farmer or Winker, either one, or India. Well, we'll figure that out. Well, let's put him in. You want the most expensive one? What did I say, Winker? So even if you put Winker in, that's fine. I mean, you can get away with this and play anybody you want here. But again, you don't want to play Darvish in these builds. He's just too chalky. You know, even if you could afford him, you know, and you could. I mean, like you go ahead and you put in Darvish instead of. You certainly can make this work, right? I mean, even if you wanted to go to Montas and double pay up there, you probably could still make this work. Okay, but the thing is, it's not so much the price that you have to save; it's more the ownership, right? So I would rather go kind of the lower owned pitcher and then pay up for hitting, which might be low owned also over here. So that's just, you know, that's just my opinion. Like if we're gonna do this, if you wanted to play, for example, Montas and Darvish, to show you what the Baltimore thing would look like, that would be, or Minnesota, right? Minnesota. Well, you watch out for Nelson Cruz, by the way. He came out of the lineup the other day with a neck stiffness. I would be very, very careful about that. But if he plays Minnesota, you could probably fit in the same as Cincinnati. But I want to see what Baltimore looks like. Santander, Galvis, Mullins, Mancini, Mountcastle. So Mullins, Mountcastle, what did I say? Santander, Mancini, Galvis, right? So again, on Baltimore, then you could eat the chalk at pitching a little bit, right? Makes it a little harder, but you can get the decent one-offs in here, right? And what I'll do is I will go over the one-offs, and all I'm doing is just ranking these guys, right? So let me see what these good one-offs would kind of look like. Yeah. So again, Castellanos, Kepler. Kepler's only 2,900. Wow. Yeah, that 6% is a joke. He's not going to be 6%. Brantley, Alvarez, the guys we mentioned pretty much. Christian Walker again, Gurriel, these Minnesota guys. So it's basically going to be from the teams that we mentioned. So that's where I'm going to be. What's interesting, by the way, let's do the same thing for FanDuel. And then we'll go back and use Saberson to build some. So with FanDuel, you ain't gonna like this. My top-rated guy on FanDuel, I mean, you're probably not going to need him, okay? But just for kicks, it is Merrill Kelly. So if we do need those big hitters, we could certainly, I'm going to do it, you know, just on principle. But if you didn't want to do that, and you probably don't have to, it's the same analysis, right? You got Darvish, who rates to have a slightly better value score, you know, but it's not by much, and you're getting you're dealing with probably 3 times the ownership on Darvish as opposed to Savali, maybe, right? So on FanDuel, again, I think that once again, Darvish is going to be faded, at least by me. So it'll be Savale, and if I need a Merrill Kelly, but I'm predicting I don't even need Merrill Kelly. So it'll be either Savale, Montas, or Merrill Kelly. But just for, you know, S's and G's, right? We'll put in a lineup with, well, let's see what happens if, let's see something real quick. Let me see what the FanDuel stacks look like. Now again, I just want to rank these by raw points because I'm gonna want to jam in salary. So if you rank these by raw points, all right, so it's Houston and Cincinnati. So let's see if we even need Merrill Kelly to jam in those bats from Houston and Cincinnati. So the first thing is that let's get the most expensive one. So let's put in Altuve because we know he's second base. Third base, was that going to be, can you get Suarez at third base? Yes. So let's put him there. Because shortstop, I think that, well, it could be either Correa or, well, let's put in Correa. Put in Correa. You want to put in a, you know we're not going to need this, right? Let's just put him in anyway. Merrill Kelly. 30, well, maybe you do need him. 34.60 a man. Okay. Let's jam salary in. So let's look at so Gurriel, Castellanos. So let's first look at let's put Gurriel in first. So we'll jam in Gurriel, 3,300. Oh, we are going to need him. All right. And we're just ranking these guys by we're not even ranking them by value, just by raw points. So Castellanos, Winker, India. So let's see, Winker, Castellanos. Where's India? We need their outfielder. India is only, oh, it's only 2,800. And another outfielder on Houston, maybe? Well, is Gurriel somehow outfield eligible? Let's see. That would be sweet if it was pure. Let's see. Let's see. We don't have Alvarez in there. Yeah, so I didn't have Alvarez in. Okay, so we really can't afford it, right? But if we then rank it by value, we definitely could. So let's put him in here. We're over by only 1,000. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I want to do now is see which of these guys does not rate that well in the value perspective, but did in the raw perspective. So it looks like Altuve, Correa. Okay, so we're going to want Alvarez. We're not necessarily going to want Winker. Okay, so let's take out Winker. And what other red would be nice if there's another red that fit right in there, like a champion. You could play Tyler Naquin. There it is. You don't even need Tyler Naquin. What I would then want to do, let's go back to the raw points. You see there's a really great outfielder on FanDuel that I'm missing here. McCormick's such a good value. Maybe we should use him. Let's put him in. Oops. Put in McCormick. We're going to get rid of one of the Houstons. Well, we could certainly get rid of Correa, right? Oh, we got rid of the Winker over here, right? So we have Castellanos, India, Suarez. We need one more good red. And who are the good reds? India, Castellanos, Suarez. Again, I gotta do better with this. How to show you either Stevenson or Aquino. We don't have Aquino in here? Oh, we gotta get him in. He's got too much power. Let's get him in. Aquino's only 2,100. Yeah, so you are going to be able to do whatever you want here. You get the idea, though, right? Merrill Kelly does, you know, help out. So here you almost have a perfect 4x4. There's one other red I'd like to put in just to cure my ADD. Let me just see if there's one more red that I'm missing here. Castellanos, so we could try to play Winker. If we could play Winker, that'd be great. So Winker or Stevenson. So what's Stevenson? It's only 2,500. Winker was how much? He was 4,300. Play him instead of Alvarez if you want. You almost play him instead of Aquino. You don't play Alvarez. You see what I'm saying? Okay, that's pretty much it. So we can fiddle around with this, and so you can definitely play a lineup with Merrill Kelly in it, and it'll help you. So if you want to do that, it's totally fine. So let's build a couple of Saber Sim builds just to see what that would provide for us. And again, the way we do that Now you're gonna have to figure out how to do this on your own. I mean, I have my own way to parse the data so that it's downloadable, but you can download it right from the site, from the Google Sheet, and you can come up with something similar to this. Where is this? So what I do is I have my own little thing over here, and then what I'll do is I change the projections and ownerships to mine. This is like so key. This really leverages like all the work that I do, and then I use SaberSim's algorithm to help build the upside lineup. So what I like to do is, instead of these build settings, I want to change it a little bit. I want to do a little, actually this is okay. I was going to say the ownership fade's fine. And smart diversity, that means how much are we going to ignore the projections? That's basically what it means. Is about 2/3 down, which is about fine for baseball. Again, as I mentioned, projections are not that big a deal, but they're somewhat okay. So let's build 20 lineups here. And let's see what type of stuff SaberSim will come up with, given, right, my projections, given my ownership. So what, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? Whenever you're putting in lousy projections and lousy ownership projections, you're just going to get bad lineups, regardless of what optimizer you use. But let me just see, I'm very curious what this does with respect to building for the day. No, I'm going to save them. So right now, so here are the lineups. It built actually 500, but these are my top 20. Let's just take a look and see how it apportioned the pitching, for example. So here, it gave me 70% Yu Darvish, 40% Gibson, 30% Odorizzi, then Savali, Montas. It spread it out a decent amount. Now, with respect to team stacks, he got me 100% Houston. I mean, that's how much my projections, I guess, loves Houston. And then 55% Cincinnati, and Minnesota, Arizona, Baltimore, and Milwaukee. Then stack types that it gave me was mostly 5-3s. So it's what you're going to be able to do. Like I mentioned, it's a lot of these Houston, Cincinnati's, are going to be able to work. You see some Arizonas, some Minnesotas, and things like that. And I am ranking these things by SaberScore, which is basically, accounting for upside and things like that. If I rated them by projection score, they might look a little bit different. Like some of these bottom ones changed a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll rank them by SaberScore and then just download them, and then I'll upload these to DraftKings. Where's my DraftKings? I'll upload them here. And then if I choose to use them, I'll use them. We already saved them in my whatever. And we'll just save them here. So if we want to use them, we can use them already. And then what I'll do is I'll keep doing that as different things change. I don't monitor all day long. Obviously, I'm busy. I'm working, but like when I do this a little bit later, when I do run for later, I'll change my projections. Then everything is just going to be different. But so in total, all right. So that's what I'm gonna do. You want me to do SaberSim for FanDuel too? Yeah, why not? So let's do one for FanDuel, and it's the same process. I have a thing where I can take the data I need, upload this to the SaberSim thingamabobber. And again, you could use a lot of optimizers. I happen to like this one. And then we'll build this. I like to keep the sliders the same. They do a lot of work on it, on what sliders are good for. And I'm going to stick with their recommended apportionment of risk versus reward. That's the best way to describe it. And let's see what FanDuel looks like. FanDuel, you can save the lineups on your computer, but you can't save them within the FanDuel app unless you're actually putting them in, which I will do just for fun. And you see that's the thing, I could always change these. But I'm just curious to see if this thing really just jams in Merrill Kelly or if it prefers the raw points. Now, see, this is going to get me Darvish. looking at pitching. Darvish, it's not even it's going to be almost zero Merrill Kelly, because I guess when SaberSim runs its sims, it's really able to find the upside in the hitting without having to pay up all the way. And that's one of the reasons I use SaberSim or any optimizer, is to see what these things are going to look like. So in case, before I go crazy, hand building lineups with Merrill Kelly, to give a little bit of a sanity check here. But so just for the hell of it, we'll download these, and then we will go back to FanDuel. Then we'll pull up the small one, the one that you need to beat 1 million people for. We'll enter new lineup, but not this one. We will upload it from the CSV that we just saved. And $88 into the garbage. Okay, so that was kind of an early look at like projections right to build. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing when I do this live a little bit later. I'm going to have the later projections, and I'm going to go through pretty much the same process. But just because I know you guys want this, I will just kind of review what I like. I do think at pitcher, I think it's very close. Darvish slightly the best, then Gibson, Odorizzi, Montas, Savali. They're all really, really close. On FanDuel, as I mentioned before, Merrill Kelly stands out as a strong value that you might not need. Darvish, Savali, Montas. I still would prefer Savali at the ownership discount. And with respect to hitting, you'll note that Chris McCormick and Nick Castellanos, Kepler rate out really, really strong plays individually. And then with respect to stacks, it was going to be Houston and Cincinnati as pretty clear standouts. And then maybe Minnesota, Baltimore, if you wanted to pivot a little bit. So again, that's all I have for you as an early look. I don't know, if you prefer this or the game-by-game thing, whatever. We're going to give you a little bit of both as we kind of go forward. So that's all I got for this, early look, and we'll be back a little bit later for the live look. That'll do it.